Everyone wants to know what an unschooling day looks like. Maybe real examples. So you look around and you're hoping to find a schedule or a rhythm, or at least a rough outline of what the day is supposed to look like. And instead, you keep finding answers like, it depends. Every family is different, which isn't very helpful when you're standing in your kitchen wondering what today is supposed to look like. So let's make this more concrete. Not a schedule you need to follow, just a clearer picture of what unschooling can actually look like in real life. Before we do that, I'm Sue Patterson. This is the Unschooling Mom to Mom podcast. I'm glad you're here. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, then you already know that we do weekly pep talks to help unschooling parents or parents that are thinking about unschooling figure out, how do we make this work in real life? I really am all about the practical side of what works. My own 3 kids are grown now, and I have circled back to give a lot of different ideas for ways that you can learn how to live this unconventional life that works in your family, with your kid, in your world. Throughout all the podcasts, you'll hear me talk about my membership group, the new app that we have with daily voice notes, guides, courses. There are so many ways to get the information you need, and I just want to make sure that you get something that will really work for you. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have a question or if you're trying to find something and I can help you. I read them all. Okay, so let's go back to our quick reality check about unschooling schedules. Before we get into examples, it helps to name something up front. Unschooling is not going to follow a daily schedule. That doesn't mean your days are just chaotic and directionless. It means that the structure comes from your life, not from a preset plan. And that's the part that can feel confusing because most of us were taught that structure has to be created in advance. And in unschooling, structure shows up through patterns and interests and daily rhythms. I have other podcasts that address this. I'll put them on the video, it'll be linked, and then on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes so that you can continue this journey of learning more about what unschooling actually looks like day to day. So let's start with younger kids. They tend to move through the world in a really natural rhythm. A typical day might look like a slow morning, cartoons or YouTube, building with Lego or playing pretend, going outside, biking, exploring, helping with cooking or baking, asking questions throughout the day, listening to stories or audiobooks or being read to. It can look simple. It can even be a little repetitive, but this is where a lot of the foundational learning happens. Language development, problem solving, creativity, physical coordination. It just doesn't look like lessons. Because then when kids are a little older in that 9 to 12-year-old range, things start to look a little less hands-on and more interest-driven. You might see long stretches of gaming, or watching tutorials of other people gaming, or deep diving into topics online, or texting or talking with friends. Maybe they're working on personal projects in bursts or researching things that catch their interest. From the outside, this is where parents might start to worry because it can look like too much screen time or not enough structure or not enough variety. But internally, this is often when critical thinking increases and persistence develops and interests deepen. It's also where learning becomes less visible, which is why this stage often triggers a lot of doubt. So teen days look even more independent. A typical day might include sleeping in or shifting sleep schedules, independent learning through videos or courses or communities, creative work like writing or arting or coding or design. They may not even be sharing it with you. Part-time jobs, volunteering, social activities, and a deeper focus on specific interests. At this stage, learning often looks the least like school and the most like real life, which can feel reassuring or unsettling depending on the day. So if all of these examples feel a little loose, that's because they are. Unschooling is not built around controlling time. It's built around supporting curiosity and connection. That means the structure is going to be more flexible. It's going to be responsive and different from day to day. And that's where most parents start to feel like something's missing. because it doesn't match what we were taught structure should look like. Structure in an unschooling home, it doesn't disappear, it just shifts. Instead of fixed schedules and assigned subjects or planned outcomes, you start to see a natural rhythm in the week or repeated interests. There are more shared routines like meals or outings or connection time. And you start to see the patterns in energy and in focus. So this kind of structure, it's easier to miss at first, but once you see it, it changes how the day feels. So when you still feel like you need more structure, there's this point where many parents start thinking, okay, I understand this, but I still feel like we need something. Not a full curriculum, just something steadier. And that's a really normal place to land. And it's exactly why we're focusing on structure this month in the Creating Confidence Daily app. Every day, I'm going to come in and talk about different aspects of structure. So you might want to jump onto that. It's not going to be a school style structure. It's going to be more like the kind that will help you notice what's already working or create a rhythm that fits your family or feel less like you're guessing your way through the day. Each day is a small reset, a short voice note, a shift in perspective, or something practical to notice. So the day doesn't feel so open-ended. So if you've been wanting a little more structure for yourself without turning back to school, you can explore this Creating Confidence Daily app and see if it fits what you need right now. So if you were hoping for a schedule you could copy, this probably didn't give you that. But it should give you something more useful, a way to recognize what's already happening. Because unschooling days don't need to look impressive to be effective. They need to work for your child and feel sustainable for you. And when those two things line up, the question of what should this look like starts to matter a lot less. So normally I would end this right here. But as I was thinking about all of these things, immediately the questions pop into my head after 30 years of listening to other people and where they have stumbling places in unschooling. I know what the questions are going to be. So let's go ahead and go through them. I'll pull some out that I found online, others that I just remember over the years. Let's call this the frequently asked questions about unschooling days and routines. If you have another question that I don't cover in this, put it below and let me know. We'll cover it. We talked about it in there, but a lot of times people say, can I have a daily schedule? And I would say yes. Your daily schedule is going to look like what your real life needs. What I tell them in the membership group is to look at 1 week at a time so that you can plug in your have-tos. Where do we have appointments? Where do we have things that we've already committed to? Plug those in. Then break things by morning, afternoon, and evening. And think of 2 things in each of those blocks. What's something the kids are going to maybe be interested in doing? And what's something you need to do? Because a lot of people end up saying, if I don't have a structure, the laundry will never get done. Well, then put it in the morning, especially if your kids are sleeping in. Get your stuff done. But if you look at it in those kinds of time blocks instead of that hour-to-hour schedule, it's so easy for those hour-to-hour schedules to fall apart. So skip them. Okay, as soon as I say skip them, I realize some people love that. Do it for yourself, not for your child. All right. If you're a bullet journal type person, then write it all out, but do it for yourself. Because you're going to start to see routines of when do we eat? When do we leave? What works for us? Does leaving early in the morning not work? Then we don't do anything before 11 or 1 or whatever works. Or we do on some days, but on other days we don't. And so then we start to see 1 week at a time, what does the routine look like? So you can see already, I'm not talking about where do I do math or where do I do science or where do I do those kinds of things. I'm talking about living life. Where do different things happen in our week that we want to make sure we get to? Okay, next. When people ask about what a typical unschooling day looks like, remember that it's going to vary by age, by personality. Some family is really into hiking. The other family is really into gaming. They're going to look completely different. Because we're learning how to individualize. We're stepping away from the comparison that school taught us was important. It's not important in real life. What's important is figuring out, how do you want to spend your day? How do you learn to value the things that your kids value? Because that's going to build up their confidence so that they can move out into the world. So, what does a typical unschooling day like? Typical for who? Think about your last few Saturdays. What did they look like? Think about what happens when you live your life without worrying that some external system has a plan for you. What if you just create the plan for the people involved? And those will be your typical days. And they're going to change as the kids get older, as the seasons change, as their interests change. Lots of times people say, oh, unschooling, it's so easy. In some respects, absolutely. In other respects, we are constantly adjusting. That's what you're going to train yourself to do, to notice. The other day I was on a coaching call and I thought about all the roles that parents have. And I think what the biggest role for an unschooling parent is to be the supreme noticer. You're going to notice what needs to change, what needs to stay the same. How do we need to adjust for our family? Okay, now inevitably somebody's going to want to know, how do I know my child is learning without a curriculum? That focus on daily output is left over from school. I really want you to spend a lot of time deschooling because it creeps into our thoughts in more ways than we ever realized. You may notice that your child is developing skills or asking more complex questions or solving problems or going deeper into topics that they care about. These are all signs of learning. Now, there's not a checklist, but checklists can be really confining, and they can also really stop that curiosity and creative flow, which is going to take your child further. So it's not going to look like traditional schoolwork. It's going to be hit and miss all over the place. But you're going to hear it in the conversations that they have and see it. When you look back on 6 months from now, where was the progress? Not can they now do fractions, but are they better at something that they struggled with before? Those are the things that we're focusing on. And if that's hard for you, I do have seasonal guides that take those subjects and show you where all the different activities that happen in spring, say, that are language arts, that you could check your own mental checklist of there's some language arts, there's some math, there's some science. And sometimes we need to do that during our deschooling phase because the fear is screaming so loudly in our head that if we can say, hey, they did this, it was a little bit of math, they did this, it was a little bit of science. If we can say that to that fear in our head, we can relax into our day and meet our kids where they are. So another question is it normal for unschooling to feel so unstructured? Yes. And many parents feel it's too unstructured at first because we've had all that conditioning that children need structure. But it doesn't have to be a structure that looks like school. Instead of creating strict schedules or lesson plans, lots of unschooling families simply focus on the rhythm, the shared routines, and more intentional connection throughout the day. Okay, so what other questions do you have about it? Let me know in the comments. Join me over in the membership. Grab the app, all the different ways to get support because you just need another voice in your head that offsets some of that mainstream thinking that you have been engulfed in for most of your life. We're going to start to break that apart a little bit and see what's really needed and what's not. So happy unschooling. Enjoy the kids. Thanks for being here.